Great. Excellent. Welcome to part 3. So this is looking at a way to help you with your literature review for your lab report. In PSYC 125, you've looked at methods for sourcing literature with our faculty librarian, Bob Frost. He has shown you OneSearch, Google Scholar, and the Web of Science. He's also shown you RefWorks, so now it's time to put them all to some use. So you found some research and it looks as though it might be relevant. But how do you know if that research is worthy of being in the literature review section of your lab report introduction? And how do you know that the research will lead you to a good rationale for the present study? Essentially, these are what a lit review does. A lit review presents good quality evidence from previous studies, and it helps you build a rationale for the present study. And it does it by critically evaluating papers that have covered research similar to your problem. As you're critically evaluating those papers, you're finding reasons for why this study of yours is needed. And this could be because of inconsistencies between research findings, or some studies find effects, others do not. Some studies may say the effect is due to this variable, other studies call that variable confounded variable and test the third variable. It also helps you locate why your study is important. So there's both a need for the study, but what the impact of the study is going to be. And that could be that you're generalizing the effect to a new sample. It could be that you're testing the effect with a new measure. It could be that you're providing further evidence to prove that one set of findings is more consistent than another set of findings, both of which are present in the literature. There are a number of ways and a number of reasons why you might be doing your study. A good study is always motivated by a rationale provided by studies that came before it. And in many ways, this is the element of the replication that was required by Fisher to provide evidence of a true effect. When we tweak the designs of previous studies, we may be explicitly correcting for methodological error, or testing a new measure, or exploring the conditions under which the effect may be stronger or weaker. What's always present in a strong literature review is a critical element. And this is another question that comes up every year with first year students. How do we do a critical evaluation? There are numerous ways you can approach critical evaluation. One way is looking across multiple articles. You might juxtapose papers where they have similar methods but different findings. You might juxtapose papers that have different interpretations for the same findings. For instance, in PSYC 115, theory of mind was talked about as being either a simulation, where you didn't have to have a theory of mind to be able to have false beliefs or plant false beliefs, or theory of mind was connected to the ability to detect false belief. Another example is that there are two explanations for the genesis of autism, which is the theory of mind basis or the executive function explanation. So you can achieve criticality in that way by putting those types of papers together in a paragraph to contrast points. A further type of criticality is to look within a single paper. And this is a further way to judge the soundness of the study's rationale, method, and findings as a cohesive piece of research. Because if a study is not logical or sound, our confidence in their findings and assertions should be weakened. But also, there is a possibility of making a correction to the method in a new study. Their flaws provide potentially your study with a rationale. Here's what I recommend you do to see if any of the papers you find are worth reading in greater depth. Please note, you have to find 3 papers on your own and include them in your literature review as part of your lab report. First of all, in the abstract, find the first claim that the authors make for an effect or a finding. Then go straight to the results section of the paper and try and locate the statistical result, the numbers that are linked to that claim. Once you've found those results, see if there is any verbal description written with them. If there is, check that the verbal description matches the results. Is there a decision about a hypothesis there as well? Once you have that, you can go back to the last paragraph of the introduction or the beginning of the method and see if you can locate the hypothesis that matches that claim and that statistical result. Within a single study, there may be several hypotheses. You might have several statistical results, but you are finding that one result and the one hypothesis that matches the claim that's in the abstract. This is their primary finding. They've put it in the abstract because this is the finding that the research team is really happy about. Check that the hypothesis matches the conditions used in the statistical test. Sometimes they don't, and that's when you begin to go, ooh, dodgy. Next, go forward. Go forward to the method and check the measures that were linked to the hypothesis and how they were operationalised. Because it's okay to talk about things in hypotheses and talk about them in a test, but how did they actually put them into practice? You might think that the way they operationalise the hypothesis variables is a bit strange. This is you being critical, so make note of those thoughts and raise them with your table of peers. It might be that there's some mismatch between the hypothesis, the operationalisation and the statistical test. If they all match up, if they all cohere, then the logic is sound. If there's something that makes you go, then the logic may be unsound, and in which case you need to go back to the introduction and you need to have a look for the reasoning that led to either the hypothesis or the way that they operationalised the measures. A lack of adequate description at this point suggests that there's a problem in the research process. It could be that the research is at a very early stage and so the measures are borrowed from another field, or they're trying it on a new sample, and that might motivate new measures being developed. It could be that it's completely exploratory and they're very early in the research arc, so they don't really know what they're looking for. This might then mean that the hypotheses are very loose, but if you find that there's a mismatch, then that can be grounds for your criticality. Let's do an example. So here's an article I randomly picked from my list of papers. It's a paper from 1988, so it's very old. I don't suggest that you use a paper so old. Try and find papers within the last 10 years. The first claim that I came across in the abstract was a highly significant effect of an age of acquisition on reading accuracy was obtained. So this means that words that you learn earlier in life are more accurately read than words that you learn later in life. Okay, so I found a claim. Then I go and locate the statistical results in the results section. And here it is, in yellow. It's an ANOVA because it's an F ratio. You'll learn about these in year 2. And it's also showing here that it is a significant result. Here is the p-value, p of less than 0.001. Is the verbal description accurate? Here's the verbal description. In green, words acquired earlier were easier to read than words acquired late. So that's definitely describing a difference in words rather than numbers. Okay, so I'm going to go and find the hypothesis. I've gone back to the introduction, the last paragraph, and actually I couldn't really find one. I couldn't find a strong description of a hypothesis. But what I did find was this. It appears that the role of imageability and age of acquisition in children's reading has not been conclusively determined, and our experiments aim to investigate the effects of these word properties more directly. Children aged 9 to 10 years were presented with 2 reading tasks. One varied age of acquisition. I'll carry on a little bit for context, and the other varied imageability. So from this, I'm taking that children read words in which an age of acquisition was either earlier acquired or later acquired, and they were exploring the effects or differences between those 2 levels of age of acquisition. So sometimes the hypothesis comes like this, and sometimes it's very directly stated. This is an old paper, so this kind of writing was quite typical. Nowadays, you might find that hypotheses are more explicitly stated. So now I've got to find the measures. Okay, this is getting interesting. How is the age of acquisition operationalised? What have we got? Stimulus materials. Early and late acquired words, 40 words with age of acquisition ratings below 3.5 and 40 with age of acquisitions ratings 4.5 were chosen from the Gilhooly and Logie norms. So it's an established age of acquisition set. And the next sentence says these norms are based on adult ratings of age of acquisition. A rating of 1 indicates the word was learned at 0 to 2 years of age. A rating of 2 that it was learned at 3 to 4 years, and so on. The maximum rating is 7, which indicates an age of acquisition greater than 12 years. So we have a good description of the operationalisation of the age of the acquisition variable. Great. Now I have to decide, do the measures, the sample, the test and the hypothesis cohere together? What do we have? The measures are adult ratings of age of acquisition, early versus late, 40 of each. The top rating is that of 12 years of age. In our sample, we have children of 9 to 10 years of age. And that could be a point where you go, oh, okay. So maybe I could criticise the findings on this discrepancy between adult ratings and child participants. Items of 7 are included in the words. However, the age of the children is 9 to 10 years old. So some of the words are rated as being outside the age range of the children. The test is a test of group differences between early and versus late words. However, in the late words, some words are unknown. Is this a fair test? And in that case, do these elements cohere? I think we could maybe be a little bit critical here. Then you might want to go and read the introduction a little bit further to see if there's a reason that they explain. A good reason and a good rationale why adult norms were used and all the words were kept in the sample. Now you could agree with that and you could use it in your review, but it would probably beg that when you're setting out your own rationale, you were going to say, well, in that case, I'm going to use child ratings, and you would make your own ratings. Or you would exclude some of the words that the children couldn't possibly know as a function of the adult ratings to make the test a stronger test, a fairer test. This could be a rationale for the ensuing study. And that's a way of being critical. In week 6 labs, we're going to practice this. We're going to take the essential readings that are in the resource list under Lab 6 activity on the PSYC 123 Moodle page and practice this method as an example for how you can find your own papers and judge them for their quality for inclusion in your literature review. As part of the coursework, you have to independently source 3 papers of your own. All of the information is in the resource list, which is here. And all of the coursework guidance is in the coursework resources. There's 8 credits in this module, which is about 8 hours of independent work per week. So with the hours lab and the hours lecture, there's about 6 hours that you can spend on independent study and the writing of your coursework. So get yourself a cup of tea or your favourite beverage and go and have a read and make yourself some notes and get ready for your lab. And I look forward to seeing you there.